In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, September 13th. North Korea launches 2 ballistic missiles into waters off its east coast earlier today, just ahead of a highly anticipated summit between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin in Russia's Far East to reportedly seal an arms deal. And accordingly, the US has vowed additional sanctions against North Korea and Russia in the event of an arms deal between the two countries, while Washington's defense and commerce officials prepare trips to Seoul for related talks. Meanwhile, the death toll from flooding in Libya rises to well above 5,000 after heavy rain destroys 2 dams, leading to homes being swept away into the sea in the eastern city of Derna, where thousands remain missing. We start in Russia, where Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un are said to have met and exchanged greetings at a spaceport in Russia's Far East. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Arirang reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has reportedly arrived for a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at a Russian spaceport, the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Amur Oblast in the Russian Far East. That's according to the Russian news agency TASS, which said that Kim met with his Russian counterpart there, shook hands with him, and had a brief conversation. The top summit between the two leaders appears to be starting soon. Kim entered Russia by train at the border city of Hasan on Tuesday at 6 a.m. local time, according to the Northeast state-run Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday. Kim was greeted there by Russian central and local government officials, including the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment and the governor of Primorsky Krai. The officials said that they were sent by Russian President Vladimir Putin to welcome Kim. Kim said his first visit to Russia in 4 years was a distinctive expression to highlight the strategic importance of Pyongyang-Moscow relations. After their meeting at the spaceport, Japan's Kyodo News earlier said that the two leaders are expected to visit an aircraft plant in Komsomolsk on Amur. This comes as it was announced that Putin would visit the spaceport after a session at the Eastern Economic Forum. Analysts say that the meeting at the spaceport symbolizes the two leaders' intention to show their will for military cooperation, especially in the space technology sector. The aircraft plant, too, is also relatable to their potential military ties, as the plant produces a range of fighter jets, including high-tech 5th-generation jets. A shipyard to launch attack submarines is also located in that area, too, which could interest the North as it recently launched its first tactical nuclear submarine earlier this month. More concerns are about to come, with close military ties between the two appearing to be just around the corner. 이대현, Arirang News.
Now, just ahead of that highly anticipated summit, North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles toward the EC earlier on this Wednesday. According to Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the 2 missiles were launched between 11:43 and 11:53 a.m. today, each flying some 650 kilometers from North Korea's Sunan region. The launch is said to be the first to take place while Kim Jong-un is overseas. Authorities here in South Korea reportedly maintaining their full readiness stance via close cooperation with the US. Also, in related news, the Biden administration says it will take stern action against North Korea and Russia should the two countries seal a weapons deal. Our Lee Seung-jae has more on the punitive measures.
Washington says it will not hesitate to take action if Pyongyang does forge ahead with providing weapons to Moscow as speculated, following the upcoming summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Tuesday, any arms transfer from North Korea to Russia would violate multiple UN Security Council resolutions.
And we, of course, have aggressively enforced our sanctions against entities that fund Russia's war effort, and we will continue to enforce those sanctions and will not hesitate to impose new sanctions if appropriate.
When asked if Russia can unilaterally lift UNSC resolutions against North Korea following comments from the Kremlin that Russia may be willing to discuss the lifting of sanctions currently imposed on North Korea with Pyongyang if necessary, Miller simply said no, adding that Russia cannot take unilateral actions related to the United Nations Security Council. Meanwhile, U.S. defense and commerce officials are set to visit Seoul to discuss the possible arms deal between North Korea and Russia with South Korean government officials. According to the Pentagon, Acting Undersecretary for Defense for Policy Sasha Baker will visit South Korea later this week to take part in the fourth meeting of the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, where she will also meet government and military leaders to discuss the current security environment. U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce Don Graves will also visit Seoul next week to discuss ways to strengthen export controls currently in place against Russia. The U.S. is actively pushing for ways to respond to a North Korea-Russia arms deal, as U.S. Deputy Special Envoy for North Korea Jung Pak said Monday that the Kim-Putin meeting might be the final step before the countries strike an arms deal. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, against the backdrop of broader geopolitical tensions and uncertainty, a former South Korean diplomat believes the Yoon administration should remain committed to its values-based foreign policy. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
South Korea must continue to take a principled approach to security and diplomacy as its scope of global interests expands beyond the Korean peninsula. That's according to An Oh-young, former South Korean ambassador to the United States. First, as Seoul faces a nuclear North Korea that appears to be aligning with China and Russia, An said the Camp David summit between the leaders of Seoul, Washington and Tokyo last month came at a crucial time as they forged a three-way approach to regional and economic security and engagement with other Indo-Pacific countries.
When I talk about the timing, we should be thinking about Russian invasion of Ukraine, and then now Chairman Kim Jong-un is coming to visit Russia. And then they talk about exchanges of arms for high technology, for missiles, for submarines, nuclear submarines, and satellites. And then what China is doing in our part of the world, in East China Sea, in South China Sea, putting them all together, this in fact is a very challenging time.
Though under pressure from Beijing, An says Seoul must continue to act in line with its core values.
That is to say, liberal democracy, human rights, rule of law. We, in fact, must let China understand that we, in fact, are very much interested in continuing to develop relationship with China, but we will have to do it on our own core values and on the basis of mutual respect and on the basis of mutual benefit. And I think Yoon government, President Yoon government, has been very consistent in conveying that message to China. These days, I'm under the impression that Beijing begins to understand what President Yoon's approach is to Beijing.
While pushing for a trilateral summit with Tokyo and Beijing, President Yoon last week pressed China to contain North Korea's weapons program and warned against military cooperation with Pyongyang ahead of Kim Jong-un's meeting with Vladimir Putin. Yoon further said unilateral actions to change the status quo in the South China Sea are unacceptable, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine is unlawful. In light of ideological divisions seen among the G20 members, Seoul's active push for global norms and cooperation has fueled talk of the Group of Seven possibly expanding to a G9.
And I think, given that reality, I think there should be renewed understanding about the importance of G7. What I find interesting is this idea of Korea and Australia joining G7. That idea, in fact, is being discussed more often in Washington, D.C., rather than in Seoul. That's something I find interesting.
The former ambassador at large for the G20 says he is encouraged by Yoon's multilateral diplomacy and multi-million-dollar pledges to tackle the global climate crisis and reconstruct Ukraine.
Well, Korea as a nation has developed enormously over the past 70 years. And then I think the basic orientation of the country has been opening up, liberalization and engagement. That, in fact, has the overall direction of the country. And then I think we must keep on doing that.
Ahead of further challenges with major elections coming up in 2024, including the possible return of Donald Trump as US president, An again highlighted the importance of liberal democracies, comprising skillful bureaucrats, academics, opinion leaders and journalists, keeping societies free.
So they are the kind of efforts we must continue in the days to come, including the efforts we are making at Arirang TV.
The diplomat said he hopes to see South Korea lead by example for global peace and development, particularly as it aims to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan City, sharing the country's journey, growth and vision for a sustainable future as a global pivotal state. 오수영, Arirang News.
Also, on the domestic front, a cabinet reshuffle for the Ministries of Defence, Culture and Gender Equality is in the cards, with names likely to be shared on this Wednesday, following Defence Minister Lee Jong-seop's resignation on Tuesday. Now, for this post, People Power Party lawmaker and former Army Lieutenant General Shin Won-sik is said to be a likely candidate. For Culture, Yoon Chun, the former minister and current presidential advisor for Culture, is reportedly up for the job. As for the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, Kim Heng, a former spokesperson and director of Korea Gender Equality Education Promotion Agency, is believed to be the top candidate. And President Yoon Suk-yeol has pledged a leading role in shaping digital regulations to allow for safe and fair access to AI while fostering more talent in the field. Presiding over the 20th Emergency Economic Meeting on this Wednesday here in Seoul, President Yoon added that private sector investment and bold initiatives will serve as deciding factors in ensuring Korea's lead in hyperscale AI. The meeting today was attended by related entrepreneurs and scholars to address productive collaboration between the government and private sector to sharpen Korea's competitive edge in AI and to support Korea's hopes of leading the industry in the global arena. Employment here in Korea expanded in August by over 260,000 on year, with senior workers accounting for a substantial portion. Our Park Gon-woo reports.
Employment figures in August saw an increase on month for the first time in 5 months. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday, around 28.67 million people were in employment last month, a jump of 268,000 on year. South Korea has seen on-year jobs increases for the past 30 months. However, on-month increases dropped each month from April to July. An official from Statistics Korea said that figures rebounded in August after heavy rain in July caused employment numbers to slip. By sector, the health and welfare industry saw the biggest increase, caused by higher welfare demands from the country's aging population. This was followed by the accommodation and restaurant sector. Manufacturing saw employment figures fall for the 8th straight month, while the wholesale and retail sectors also recorded on-year decreases. By age, the biggest on-year jump was for those aged 60 and above, with about 30,000 jobs added. However, jobs for young adults under 30 tumbled again in August, dropping for the 10th month in a row since last November. The number of workers in their 40s also fell year on year for the 14th consecutive month. And the employment rate for workers aged between 15 and 64 rose 0.7 percentage points on year to 69.6%, the highest for any month of August since records were first compiled in 1989. South Korea's total unemployment rate dropped 0.1 percentage point from last year to 2%, the lowest since June 1999. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Korea's imports and exports posted their highest on-month price hikes in August since March 2022. According to the Bank of Korea, last month's price index for exports saw a 4.2% rebound on month amid greater demand for manufactured goods and petroleum products. The price index for imports also jumped 4.4%, driven by higher fuel costs. However, on year, the price of both imports and exports in August tumbled over 7%. In other news, well over 5,000 lives are believed to have been lost in Libya after heavy downpours broke 2 dams and literally swept away homes in the eastern city of Derna, which appears to have borne the brunt of the tragedy. Our Yoon explains.
The eastern Libyan city of Derna, located 300 kilometers east of Benghazi, was hit with heavy rains over the weekend from the Mediterranean storm Daniel. Libya's National Meteorological Center said there was a record 414.1 millimeters of rain from Sunday to Monday. At least 2,300 people have been reported dead, while over 10,000 are reported missing.
Humanitarian situation in Derna is very much compromised. There are more than 2,000 death cases, 7,000 stranded families. Those need to be still assisted. More than 40,000 internally displaced persons.
Heavy rains caused rivers to swell, 2 dams and 4 bridges to collapse, submerging much of the city. The death toll continues to soar as many bodies remain trapped under rubble or washed out into the Mediterranean Sea. Military personnel have been deployed and foreign aid has also arrived, but rescue workers are struggling to enter the city for further rescue efforts. Libya is often hit with flooding during the rainy season, but rarely with destruction of this level. As well as the intensity of Storm Daniel, the vulnerability of the poorly maintained infrastructure is seen to have worsened the casualties. The country's division between 2 rival governments has left many areas of the country's maintenance neglected. Yoon, Arirang News.
In the football field, Team Korea defeated Saudi Arabia 1-0 on Tuesday, offering head coach Klinsmann his first win since taking charge. At St. James's Park in Newcastle, England, Cho Kyu-sung headed the game's only goal, ending the Taeguk Warriors' 5-game winless streak. Pundits say this victory is vital for the team and Klinsmann, as the head coach has been under fire for his questionable commitment to the job. Now, Team Korea plays 2 more friendlies at home next month: Tunisia on October 13th and Vietnam on October 17th. Staying with sports news, we are counting down to the 19th Asian Games scheduled to take place in Hangzhou, China for a fortnight starting from next Saturday. That being said, our Song Yoo-jin covers Team Korea's related preparations.
With just a little over a week left until the Hangzhou Asian Games begin, Team Korea gathered on Tuesday for an inaugural ceremony. While athletes for each sport have already been selected, this ceremony marks the official launching of the national team. There, athletes showed their determination and competitive spirit, from the youngest to the oldest.
I'm honored to be the youngest on the national team, but I don't want to stop here. I want to win a medal and promote Korean chess to the world.
Competing in the Asian Games is like a surprise gift to me. I'm eager to show everything I've prepared until now.
More than 700 athletes and coaching staff participated in the ceremony. Park Bo-gyun, South Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, delivered President Yoon Suk-yeol's message that the athletes' unwavering determination and passion would undoubtedly resonate with the Korean people and bring them joy. Team Korea, in return, promised to do their best.
We hope that the sweat and toil of our athletes won't be defined by the colour of medals. It would be great if those at home find joy in athletes giving their all and leaving it all out there. We also hope that lesser-known sports can gain more recognition.
South Korea is sending a record number of 11,140 athletes and team officials in 39 sports to the 16-day games. The goal is to rank 3rd out of 45 participating countries in the overall medal ranking, as it did 5 years ago in Jakarta. As anticipation builds and excitement mounts, all that's left now is Team Korea to showcase its skills and dedication. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the United States, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has launched an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Announced on Tuesday, it will look into allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption by the president. Republicans have investigated Biden since January, but have yet to find evidence to support their claims against the president. But they have found dealings from the president's son, Hunter Biden, that they have called questionable. The White House has responded, calling the investigation extreme politics at its worst. It comes as McCarthy is facing pressure from right-wing House Republicans to investigate the Biden family. A Russian passenger plane was forced to make an emergency landing in a cornfield in Siberia after one of its hydraulic systems failed. None of the 170 people on board were injured in the incident on Tuesday. The Ural Airlines Airbus A320 was on its way from Sochi to Omsk when pilots noticed a hydraulic system fault and chose to land in the nearby field. Loss of the hydraulics system can sometimes lead to a loss of flight control. Russia's aviation agency has launched an investigation into the crash landing and has suspended the flight crew. And Russian aviation experts say that the landing may have been unnecessary, as the plane should have had backup systems. Ural Airlines has also denied that it cannot do maintenance on its planes due to sanctions on Russia that limit access to spare parts. And finally, a precious Vincent van Gogh painting that was stolen in March 2020 has been returned, covered in bubble wrap inside an IKEA bag. The 139-year-old painting was handed over to Dutch art detective Arthur Brandt on Monday at his home from a tipster not involved in the artwork's theft. The tipster handed over the masterpiece in exchange for anonymity. The painting, known as the Parsonage Garden at Nuenen in spring, is an early piece by Van Gogh. It was stolen while on temporary exhibition at the Singer-Laren Museum near Amsterdam. The thief was eventually arrested and sentenced in 2021 after the painting had already changed hands. But the conviction meant that the painting had lost value and was risky to possess, leading to its return. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's a rainy Wednesday. Rain clouds have expanded to most parts of the country, with east of Gangwon-do seeing the heaviest rainfall. And expect to see up to 100 millimeters of showers. If you're there, the rest of the country will see 10 to 60 millimeters of rainfall, along with thunder and lightning. Today's unexpected nationwide rainfall brings early autumn heat wave relief to the country for the day. Highs will be 3 to 7 degrees lower than Tuesday afternoon. Seoul topping out at 24 degrees. Daegu noticing a high going down about 5 degrees from yesterday's highs, topping out at 27 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, this round of rain continues into tomorrow morning. Then another band of rain returns to central regions from Friday into Sunday. But those in certain parts of the country need to keep an umbrella handy. On and off rain will continue through Sunday, and Jeju Island will see rain into next Monday. So please plan accordingly for your weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And on that note, we end our Wednesday afternoon newscast. But we'll return with our panel session in a few minutes, so do stay with us.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Federico Cuello. I am the ambassador of the Dominican Republic in the Republic of Korea. Arirang is the one channel in which ambassadors have a say. Ambassadors' opinions are taken into consideration. Ambassadors can promote what they are doing. I am truly grateful to be asked to speak for Arirang. I hope Arirang continues and diplomat talks continues as well, because really it is the one window in my 6 postings as ambassador, I have found to speak about my work and to speak about those issues that are of relevance for the Dominican Republic and for Korea. And I look forward to coming back as many times as possible during the remaining time I have here in Korea, resonating with the world with Arirang.
Busan, Korea is already reaching the entire world, like ocean waves that travel far and wide. It's Busan, the perfect World Expo city, transforming our world, navigating toward a better future.
어젯밤에 영화가 다 대답해 안 해달라고 했었는데
loved and watched around the world. We want to make more animations to reach more children. Traveling time and space. Developing adventure and curiosity. Infinite creativity and hope. We want our children to grow up to be happy. Animation, watched by children all around the world. So that joy can be felt when our animation is watched. This is the reason we make animation and share with the world. K-Animation, befriending children all over the world.
Contour the world, simply contour. India, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Woo!
I'm excited. You excited?
Of course.
Yeah.
Music, start.
North Korea and Russia are seeking to solidify their ties as Moscow hopes to access Pyongyang's arsenal to bolster its offensive against Ukraine in exchange for technology transfer to the reclusive regime to advance its hostile weapons ambitions. So how does a potential arms deal look to affect regional stability? What have been the implications of President Yoon's unflinching focus on tackling North Korea's threats? And do multilateral summits serve to prevent broader conflict? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. It's that time of the week yet again during which we touch upon stories here making headlines elsewhere as well. And today we delve into the various diplomatic engagements here in this part of the world. For this, I have Melanie Jensen with us. Melanie, welcome back. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Right. Well, let's start off then on a rather somber note. There is a very concerning scenario taking place in this region amid a summit between North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Russia's Vladimir Putin. Now, there is talk about a potential arms deal between the two leaders. What, in your opinion, are the prospects of such a collusion, and how does it look to affect regional stability here in this part of the world?
Well, I think that there is a very, very big risk that they are actually going to sign this arms deal. The reason why I think so is because, first of all, it just seems very obvious. North Korea has a very clear, many very clear reasons for wishing such a deal, and so does Putin. I mean, both Russia and North Korea right now are in a position where it's very difficult for them to get weapons, technology. It's very difficult for them to trade with other nations in the world, obviously, because they're both sanctions against these countries. Moreover, if you look at the people who is traveling with Kim Jong-un at this very moment, then it doesn't seem to, well, it does seem to occur that these people might be interested in an arms deal, because North Korea is traveling alongside with their foreign minister, which makes very good sense for diplomatic reasons. But moreover, North Korea is also traveling with their maritime commander and the director of the production of military weapons right now. And this seems that North Korea might be interested in getting like these weapons deals with Russia, and also the recent reports show that probably Kim Jong-un will meet Putin at a space center, so Putin can show off his space technology, his rocket technology, which we also know that North Korea is very interested in. North Korea also already fired a ballistic missile this morning. So it really seems like there is this heavy armored personnel going with Kim Jong-un. They're meeting at, probably they're meeting at a destination that has to do with, or at least can be interpreted to have to do with, military events as well. We all know that North Korea is very interested in getting this military training alongside with Russia, where North Korea is hoping that Russia and China and North Korea might do military training together, which can pressure the military training that we have between Japan, South Korea and the United States that North Korea is so angry about. So therefore, there are so many indications that this summit will probably include, to a certain extent, a weapons deal. We also know that Russia is very interested in buying weapons from North Korea. So even though we see that we have leaders from South Korea, from the United States, urging both Russia and North Korea to not do this deal, it does seem like that will be the end of the summit.
Right, the two leaders, as we know as of now, that is on this Wednesday afternoon, the two leaders have met and they have exchanged greetings and are most likely undertaking summit talks as we speak. Melanie, the Biden administration has pledged sanctions against both North Korea and Russia, additional sanctions, of course, in the case of an arms deal between the two. The concern, of course, is that Moscow will be provided with the North Korean weapons in exchange for advanced military technology going from Moscow to Pyongyang. How worried should we be about such technology transfer, keeping in mind North Korea's nuclear and, of course, missile ambitions?
Well, I think mainly right now we should probably worry about Russia, because Russia will use these weapons probably right away if they get them. They will use them in the war against Ukraine. So I think the number one concern right now is probably Russia, even though we're sitting in Asia right now, further away from Russia than North Korea. From a South Korean perspective, obviously, it is a problem, because even though North Korea is turning against Ukraine and thereby like turning their weapons against Europe, still nobody is interested in this war to continue. And moreover, from a South Korean perspective, of course, South Korean leaders, South Korean people are not interested in North Korea getting even more knowledge, even more military weapons and posing an even bigger threat that they already are.
Right, of course. Melanie, with regard to South Korea's perspective then, now President Yoon Suk-yeol has been keeping a consistent focus on North Korea's nuclear as well as missile ambitions. And what are your thoughts regarding this unflinching focus on security concerns raised by North Korea by the Yoon administration?
Well, I think it fits very well into the international political direction that Yoon Suk-yeol is currently leading South Korea in. As we probably can all remember, Moon Jae-in was much more friendly towards Kim Jong-un and towards North Korea. But it appears that Yoon Suk-yeol is much more interested in cooperating with Japan and cooperating with the United States, and thereby much more turning his back against North Korea. And I think, well, and this is just my personal opinion, it might not be the best idea for Yoon Suk-yeol to continue having this hard stance towards North Korea, because we all know that North Korea, well, they need help. Their population is lacking a lot behind the population in South Korea in terms of living standards, in terms of access to information, well, food, shelter. So I think it might be more in South Korea's interests to a better degree help North Korea and maybe cooperate with North Korea, because in that way South Korea will not be seen as that big of a threat compared to Yoon Suk-yeol making these these demands of North Korea, coming with these comments, well, making North Korea more of a demon country than he might have to do.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, moving forward, Melanie, despite the differences shared among nations at global gatherings, and of course the lack of a proper concrete solution with regard to the global conflicts that we face at the moment, pundits claim that such global gatherings are essential in ensuring that conflicts do not become broader or more severe. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree with that. I think that, as we see right now with the G20 summit, even though it wasn't really possible to agree a lot, at least, on anything like, it's not really possible to come with any stern critics of global warming or the war against Ukraine. But even so, it is a signal sending populations in the entire world that world leaders, even though they have different values, they have different politics, they have different ideas of the world, they can still meet up, they can still agree to certain things, come with just a little bit of a conclusion and a direction to lead the world. And I think that is essential, both as a symbolic way, as a image for the public, but I also think it's important because it shows that even though we are at war, even though there are so many different ideas of how to govern the world, how to treat people, how to lead the world, then it's so important that we can still at least make a few things and find a few things that we agree upon.
Right, indeed. You spoke about the war, Melania. There was a flurry of diplomatic engagements last week over in Indonesia and in India under the frameworks of the ASEAN and the G20, respectively. Now, there has been a bit of mixed reaction with regard to the Delhi Declaration, regarding especially the response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Do you care to elaborate a bit on that?
Well, yes, I think a lot of nations, especially in Europe, are very concerned that the declaration could not be more against the war, not more anti-Russia and anti the invasion of Ukraine. I think a lot of people, especially in Europe, had hoped, because we Europeans, as I say as a fellow European, Europeans are fighting and they are seeing what happens in Ukraine, what happens in Europe, how Europe is being torn apart in so many ways, economically, and value-wise. We see like the rise of even more conspiracy theories. So of course, I think many people had hoped that there would be a more stern and a more, that people could agree more that you cannot just invade another country, right? I think a lot of people had hoped to see that, but sadly, it did not turn out that way. But I still think that just the fact that there came a declaration, it kind of made a message that at least there are some things we can agree upon. We can agree upon invading another country is not the right thing to do. So I think we made a little bit of progress, even though a lot of people had hoped that it would be more progress. Though it does make sense that there will not be more progress because, well, Russia, even though Putin didn't participate, Russia did send someone to participate in the G20 meeting. And of course, there is no way Russia can condemn themselves.
Right, and in the meantime, then you believe a statement at least is better than no statement at all. Melanie, Brazil, it's poised to host next year's G20 summit, which I believe will probably become the G21 as the African Union has joined this particular gathering. What are the prospects, in your opinion, of a more stern statement against Russia's invasion of Ukraine in next year's gathering in Brazil?
Well, I think we can probably not expect that. Then at least there should be some major change the next year where Putin is thrown out as a president, where we will get a new government, where we will get a Russian government that is actually against the war, which I think we can probably not expect. Of course, there might be some kind of events. Maybe Russia will lose the war. Maybe Russia will be kicked out of G20. I don't know if that's even possible. I'm not sure if you can do that. But anyway, I think as long as Russia has a seat in G20, and also we see other nations that are not as interested and as much against the war in Ukraine as, for example, the European nation is. So I think as long as we have those leaders, as long as we have Russia has a seat in G20, there is a very, very small chance that we will get a more stern statement on that, just as there is a small chance that we will get a stern statement against climate change, against burning of fossil fuels, against, well, basically anything, because we have so many leaders from so many countries meeting, and they all have a different perspective.
Right, indeed. And Melanie, this is yet another impromptu question, but I was wondering whether Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russia's aggressions there, have somehow changed or shifted interest in defense matters with regarding to your home country, Denmark?
Oh, it definitely has. In Denmark, for a very long time, we actually cut in the budget in the military, and we did not consider defense and military such a great matter, because everyone was saying, oh, there will be no war. If there is war, it's way out of Europe. It's far, far away from Denmark. So when the war actually broke out, it was a shock. It was really a shock to Denmark, to Danish politicians. We even did the thing which has angered many Danish people. We removed a holiday in May. Every May, like May 1st, we had a holiday in Denmark, and it has now been taken away from us. And a lot of people are very angry about that. But the government used the reasoning that we need the money, we need people to work, because this holiday will generate more money for the military, so we can actually defend ourselves. So a lot of things have changed in the Danish society, and people are a lot more focused about the defense, which has, by the way, also resulted in a lot of scandals involving the military, scandals showing that, well, our war ships are not well enough. They're not well enough off. They don't have enough people on the ships. A lot of the places where the soldiers are resting and sleeping has not been taken care of well enough. People shower in cold water and those kind of things. So yeah, it has definitely shifted views in Denmark, and I think in many other European countries as well.
Right, so it has become an issue of much interest, of course. And Melanie, what do you suppose are the broader implications of strategic ambiguity by countries like, if I may, India and Brazil with regard to geopolitical tensions? How does this stance affect ways to seek a solution to tensions among superpowers?
Well, I think it's difficult because for many, many years, the world was more or less, ruled by the principles of democracy, ruled with a very stern hand by European nations, by the United States. But now this, as the war in Ukraine has shown, but also as China and the rise of China and the rise of India has shown us, the West can no longer rule the world and decide what kind of values are desirable, where the world should go. And I think very slowly Europeans and very slowly Americans are getting used to this new political environment where the truth as we used to believe it might not be the truth at all. And the way we wanted the world to be will no longer be like this, because a lot of powers have arisen and a lot of other countries with other ideas and other values are suddenly pushing the world agenda.
Right, indeed. Against that backdrop, though, the Indian administration, for its part, has been very clear about its security interests, about the need to forge stronger security ties with neighboring Japan as well as the US, against, of course, North Korea's hostile ambitions. It's also, the Indian administration is seeking, however, to promote its trade ties with neighboring China and other regional powers. How plausible, Melanie, is such a two-track policy in terms of foreign diplomacy, do you think?
Well, in my opinion, trade is trade and diplomacy is diplomacy. If you look at it, the United States are trading more with China than they're trading with the European Union. The European Union is trading more with China than they're trading with the United States. So that shows that, well, we can agree with each other, but we might not trade as much with each other. Because when you look at it, obviously the European Union's values, diplomacy, democracy, interests are much more aligned with the United States and the other way around than with China. But I still think that consumers would rather buy well, cheaper products than they will buy the expensive products from the people that we agree with.
Right, I say, and keeping that in mind, Melanie, an interesting fact is most of the global gatherings that we do have, such as the G20 and the ASEAN, they're based on the economy. Do you believe such collective interest in the economy may serve to be a platform of some kind of unity for world members as it is right now?
Do you mean that the countries will
find more ground to perhaps agree? Yes. Despite their diplomatic differences or security differences, because of their interest in the economy?
Yes. Well, as we have seen, the German international policy in many years has been exchanging ideas along with trade. I think they have a proverb for that as well in German. So yes, I do believe so. But I think also that these past years, because we have seen nations grow really big, really powerful, really rich, harboring other ideas and democracy, that also shows that, at least for some countries, democracy might not be the best way to make wealth, money connections. So I think yes and no. I think it was easier some decades back. It was easier to trade democracy along with vegetables, but I don't think it's as easy anymore, because it's very simple. A lot of countries can look to, well, for example, China or, for example, Russia, and see how they're doing and how that they have risen to big powers economically as well. And then they can see that maybe you don't need democracy, you don't need liberty of speech, you don't need Western values to become a big global power.
Right, that is one perspective then. Melanie, President Yoon Suk-yeol has been pledging to take on a greater role in global affairs, one that reflects Korea's competitive standing in the global economic arena. Do you believe his latest diplomatic agenda in Indonesia and, of course, in India has served this particular pledge of Korea playing a more leading role in global affairs?
Well, I do think he has definitely made some progress. We have seen that he has made other countries in Indonesia, for example, in the ASEAN meeting, in the ASEAN summit, he has made them take a stance against North Korea, which I think was quite a success for him. And I think he has definitely been able to promote South Korea around in the world. And he has done that in India and in Indonesia as well. However, whenever you speak up, there might also be backsides. And I think that the big stance that Yoon Suk-yeol has taken against North Korea, how much he has emphasized the threat that North Korea is making right now, it can also be problematic further on, especially if North Korea actually gets this arms deal that we're talking about, that we were talking about in the beginning of the show with Russia. So it's hard to say, but I would say overall it has been a success, and Yoon Suk-yeol has really, in general as well with his presidency, he has managed to promote South Korea as well and made a lot of international ties, especially with the United States and especially with Japan as well.
Right. Do you suppose South Korea at the moment is seeking to that, is expand its weapons market as well? It has signed great deals with Poland, a European country as well. Of course, I'm sure you're aware of that. Keeping that in mind, do you suppose Korea's strength in the weapons industry would perhaps keep North Korea from further provocations in the future? Difficult to tell.
I wish I could say yes to that question, but I don't think so. I think, as we have seen, South Korea has gathered up on the military, but so has North Korea. And even last year, North Korea fired so many missiles, as far as I know, as many as they had ever done. And, you know, they also fired a ballistic missile this morning. So no, I think North Korea would rather see it as a threat, a bigger threat, than actually being necessarily feeling the need to pull back and feeling the need to hide or ask for help. I don't think that's Kim Jong-un's way of doing things.
Right,
sadly.
Unfortunately then. Melanie, what then would you highlight as some of the Yoon administration's gains from the ASEAN-related meetings that took place in Indonesia last week? You talked a little bit about how getting the ASEAN members to take a joint stance against North Korea's security threats was one. What would be some other gains?
Well, I think in these kind of summits, you will always get the gain of, having some kind of good talks with the other leaders and getting some, goodwill from other leaders all over the world, or at least this time in Asia, though only. But I think that has also definitely strengthened Korea's position on the regional stage. So yeah, I would say those, and then the North Korean, the way that Yoon Suk-yeol has made the other leaders take a stand against North Korea, those has definitely been the two biggest successes that Yoon Suk-yeol has made on this summit. Yeah, I think
those two, with regard to security and, of course, the economy as well then.
Yeah.
All right, Melanie, as always, thank you so much for your time and your insights today.
Thank you for having me.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for this Wednesday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching.